I will talk a little bit about backlog refinement and gamification. So since Matthias is not here, but I'm here, so I'm Nils from Hamburg. So moin, everybody. I'm Agile coach and trainer, so I'm not an architect, but I collaborate a lot with architects, especially with Matthias. I worked in my past as backend developer in an Agile backend team and never saw any customers. I'm a little bit in a feature factory and not getting any positive feedback for things I developed, more like you could improve on a technical side. So in this time, something was missing. And then I did a transformation to Agile coach, Agile project lead or something, everything where Agile is in the front. So I consider myself more to be pragmatic. What am I doing if I don't work? I'm a passionate water polo player, so I played until second division and coach. And during the pandemic, I was riding a lot with my gravel bike. So sometimes I'm doing Bremen, Hamburg, if the wind is in a good direction. I'm a father of a 10-year-old boy, and I studied computer science and economics in Hamburg, Germany, and Hiroshima, Japan. So that's why the last name is maybe not familiar to you. And actually, the meaning is between the enemies or between the war lines. So I'm always joking, yeah, I'm between the customer as well as the development team, and I don't try to separate them. I try to bring them together. And some things I don't like, that's waste or muda, if you call it in the lean thing. And something which I started to like in the last 2 years or last 3 years through the pandemic was storytelling and gamification. Actually, I don't really like to play computer games, or I don't like to play tabletop games, but in the business made by teams, I like to do serious games as well as storytelling. So that's why I created a little story. And so it's totally not connected to my teams I was working with. So here we have the future, and we have a rocket flying here. And maybe if you're into anime or comic things, you already had an idea what I tried to simulate here. I said I like to do storytelling. So I took the theme Futurama so I can tell my stories without using any pictures or images of customer projects I was working. Here the rocket crashed. So let's assume we are in the future, year 3000, and there's a development team. Here we have the young and dynamic development team. Maybe you all know it. I mean, coming from university, then some people are collaborative, some people are introverted, you're new into the technology, and your company puts you in a project. So in this case, in this story, it was a young single Scrum team. So one Scrum team, which basically doesn't have to connect with other teams. They were working in the core domain of the customer and developing their own planning software. That was really nice. And when I took over this team, I had 7 new full-time developers. Most of them were new. The team was fully remote, and the team was kind of like a crisis. They were happy. Some people resigned from the company. Some people said like, yeah, they want to move to a different project. And we hired some new people, and some people were separated from the team. So everything was a little bit strange. I had 2 part-time hosting experts. So we worked fully remote, mostly in Germany and from Spain. And the 2 part-time hosting experts were fully working in Spain. I had 1 stressed product owner because basically he wanted to ramp up more teams, and he felt really responsible, and he wrote a lot of long user stories, and he worked for the firefighters. So sometimes he had to leave meetings and go to the retirement home and check if everything there is okay, and then came back. And he wasn't really able to collaborate so much. And on top, 2 managers managing everything. It's okay. I mean, even like 1 manager for this team is kind of like oversized. 2 managers makes it even better, because if you talk to the 1 manager, the other manager will not figuring out that you talk to the first manager. So if you get any agreement, the other manager of our company, he or she will forget what happened. They had some crazy idea to manage or to micromanage everybody. So they came and said like, yeah, now we have to estimate in time. And then we estimated in time, or the team estimated in time because I wasn't there. And then I said like, now you have to book times, and now you will check like, hey, you booked time, you estimated time. Why is there a difference? So that's really nice. That boosts and fosters really psychologically safety, people taking over responsibilities, so on and so on. And then one team lead or one architect distributing the work. So it's not that the people can pull work. And one part-time agile coach, that was me. So you could imagine how the mood in the team was. And we had a lot of bad practices. We were best practices. We were agile, very agile. So when I started, the customer got a prototype for free. That's always good because the customer is assuming, hey, this prototype is working, fully working, full functionality, no technical debt, but basically not. So then user stories written by the product owner and estimated by the managers, really nice, and distributed by the team lead. So no wonder that the team was really young and most of the people resigned, because what would happen psychologically, safety is dropping, nobody will take over responsibility. So my 50% of time, I was working with the team and I was talking a lot to the managers. I was talking to the client, to the customer, and basically we went on site and tried to give the team some focus and some transparency. So transparency, not only that you can see things, so we have a vision together and we can achieve something together. And if we decide something that we know, okay, we have something ordered like the backlog, we have a vision what we want to achieve. So I would call this one transparency. So we went, for example, to the factory we are building the planning software for, and then we got new energy, job shadowing. So we were doing job shadowing, just observing how everybody was doing everything. That was really nice because there was one photovoltaic module, and one of the developers said like, hey, in our planning software, we can adjust this module automatically, but here it's fixed. So how should we deal with it? And I think that this question, which requires psychologically safety, like prevent the company really from a shitstorm. So what else were we doing? Expert interviews. We were doing Design Studio. We'll show you a little bit, one image about Design Studio, and most important, eating in the cafeteria, just meeting random people, talking to them, talking about their processes, about the differences. So Design Studio here, if you never heard about it, I really like it. It's collaborative user interface designing with stakeholders and users. And here in the back, you see two backend developers, and they developed their own user interface and got feedback. So it's not about user interfaces we designed here. It's more about the conversation, the collaboration we had. So everything perfect. Huh? And the company really trusted us, or started to trust us. We were getting positive feedback. So what else could we do? We can get even more focus and commitment. So we did sprint reviews with stakeholders. I mean, it's not easy if your team doesn't feel safe, and then getting feedback for the software. We were meeting the CEO, and he was telling us what kind of nice team we are and how complicated our domain is we are working in, and we had direct contact to users. But there was still one problem or one challenge. Here we have the product owner. On the right side, we have a release plan, and then we have the burn down chart. So our releases or our sprint planning was still a little bit complicated. So we still lived the water scrum fall. Our sprints were too full, so we had the anti-pattern, because first the manager planned the sprints. Now it's hard to say for the developers, hey, the sprint is too much, too full. So they accepted too much, and the things that they were not achieving, the product owner were putting automatically to the next sprint. So we had no focus in the iteration and no realistic delivery dates, which drove people a little bit crazy. So back with the product owner here to our development room or to our war room. So I applied my best practices, and this time it's real best practices. And this is kind of like the first time we used gamification. Information radiators, so make your informations transparent, let them see. Co-creation, we talked a little bit about Design Studio, but now like story points, I think I don't have to explain to you story points, and planning poker. We could have like a long discussion about story points and planning poker. I know it's not the perfect tool for everything. I'm a fanboy, and this team was pretty young. So no estimation is maybe not the way to go for this team, because the story points gave focus and the product owner wanted to have focus and wanted to have predictability when he could release which feature and when it will be happy. So because he has to talk to the stakeholders to get more money. So until no magic. So basically here you can see me as Futurama or Simpsons character. So I could just go to the beach, enjoy some drinks, and said like, okay, this team is not doing waterfall anymore. Now it's a little bit working Scrummish and everything should be okay. But my nice team, I mean, when I started, no psychologically safety, people resigned, and now we had the stable team. And now we don't have like a happy product owner, because in his eyes we were too slow and everything is so simple, and he doesn't know why we need to refactor so much and why we need so much time. The team decided they don't want to work with story points anymore, because they had so bad experiences with the time booking that they said like, now we don't give like the story, we don't use story points anymore. We will use no estimation combined with affinity estimation and cut everything in as small as possible pieces. I mean, that's really nice. And it's not that I don't support it, but the team was really young and there was inexperience. So we had the situation, we came to the backlog refinement and the product owner said like, yeah, okay, here's the user story. The team said like, ah, this is too big. We will not develop it. And then silence. So I was like really pissed. I mean, I had to fight a lot. I had to push back a lot that we don't estimate in hours, that we don't report time to the manager, that we don't report too much time to the customer by ticket. Now the team said like no estimation, and just say to the product owner, we don't accept the tickets because they are too big, they are too risky, but no proactive move how we can cut them smaller. So I was kind of like, okay, I could go to a bar, just have a drink, sit there wasted. And said like, yeah, maybe it was a failure, maybe it was not a failure, but now why I choose the Futurama theme, because I tried to create Bender. And so maybe my invisible or imaginary friend Bender said to me like, hey, you can create your own card game with blackjack and hookers. Yes, I mean, I know blackjack is already a card game, but as I said, I was riding a lot of bicycle and I had a bicycle accident. So for 1 month, I was not really able to move, and I found Midjourney. I mean, maybe you can see it here with the slides. A pretty outstanding tool. And I remembered like planning poker. I really like it. How can we apply it? Okay, the team is working with no estimates. So good news, everyone. There's generative AI, a former backend developer who cannot paint or draw or write, so anybody can read it. He can create now a card game. So I did some research and said like, okay, what could be the next level of planning poker? So to stay in the not no estimate area, just say like, okay, imagine we would have a story with like 50 story points, but the team says like everything more than 8 story points is too much. So we have to cut them down. So I researched and found 8 ways to cut down a user story into smaller pieces. And I created these cards, and these cards have red color. So later, if you see something with red color, it means like, okay, splitting backlog items. And I choose here the card by acceptance criteria. So maybe we can focus on the acceptance criteria to reduce the scope and reduce the complexity. So the user story will go down from 50 story points to 20 or whatever. But to be honest, only this red cards, and I added 2 more, for example, for domains, splitting them by domain-driven design. That was a little bit too less for me because it was too waterfallish. I like when people collaborate and think about the story where we figured out like, hey, in the photovoltaic modules, there's something not right. So I created some green cards based on my experience, for example, attend meetings or do pair programming. So it's something to reduce the risk because maybe we pulled somebody in who implemented something before, or job shadowing, just we going there and copy and see how people working. And then some more technical cards. So if we have a user story or a requirement which is too big, hey, we could do mocking. So maybe here, this is JCon, Java conference or technical conference. So I don't have to explain you what's mocking because I will make a mistake, but this is the way to reduce complexity. Or even you can love it or you can hate it. For example, you could play an enabler card. So enabler is unsafe, means you do something for a different team where you don't benefit from. So I had my month sitting here in the chair. Maybe you cannot see, where I was kind of like not able to move my arms. So I said like, okay, I will create this backlog refinement cards. And I had one session where I showed all the backlog refinement cards at one, and I think everybody went crazy in a negative way because the way was way too much time. So I will show you a Miro board. So Miro is, since I'm working mostly remote, an online whiteboard, which is for free if you don't use them more than 3 boards. And there's the Miroverse, where you can upload your workshops, upload your whiteboards, and then other people can copy them. So I will try to explain you a bit the cards, not too much in detail, because everything which I now show, it's freely available. And I would love, you can copy it. And of course, you can adjust it. If some cards are missing, feel free to add them. So I created first the cards. Let's dive a little bit in the cards. And then I thought like, okay, it's difficult to explain them. So I created a workshop or a scenario. So this are the cards I was talking before. So this is kind of like the way how you can split backlog items. We can split them based on difficulties, or we can focus on the happy path. We can check if there are some user roles. So I was imagining my team, okay, now we would have like this too big user story and people couldn't throw cards at it, because throwing cards give you psychologically safety. I mean, you can throw a card and you can remove the card pretty easy. So it doesn't feel like making a mistake if you throw there something wrong on it. I mean, you know, it's like planning poker, you're forced to do it, so nobody will judge you for it. I mean, it should foster communication and collaboration. Or if you're working more technical, here we have like this technical operations. Do you have to implement all the time, create, read, update, and delete? Or is it okay to create less? Or here like a parameter card. Maybe if you create an API, can we reduce the parameters? Do we need the sorting by price as well as by name at the same time? Maybe this is the way to split it up. And then the next was, I was creating the screen cards. So it's more like gaining insights or creating domain knowledge. So here we have job shadowing. I really like it. I did it a lot with workers at an airport when we were developing airport software. So the workers, in this case, they never had like a high school degree. So they had problems to explain what they're doing. So we just copied them, or we just went with them to the apron and using the pushback vehicle, went to an airplane and did loading and unloading. So that was really nice because we understood the domain, as well as we gained some trust and we established communication channels. Another thing which is for me really important is interviewing experts. So breaking up the waterfall, it's not always that the product owner is right and we cannot change the user story. So we can play this card as like we need an expert interview. That can be something technical, or that can be something from the domain knowledge. Pair programming helps you to reduce complexity. Maybe there is somebody from a different team who can deal with it better than you, attending meetings or time box research, or maybe you can call it Spike. But like a German SCART deck has, I think, 32 cards. So there was a lot of room for doing more things. So I created some cards for reducing scope, because sometimes maybe if you work with more teams, you would wish that everything would be ready at the same time, and you can easily collaborate with other teams in the same time zone and create emission teams and create something together. If you're co-located, that's pretty easy. But if you're working remote in different time zones, it's not easy. So mocking is maybe an option to reduce the complexity, creating a dummy, defining a simpler solution, or working with an enabler. And maybe sometimes you just have to accept that that stories are big, and you have to think about your release strategies. Some of my teams working with feature toggles. Feature toggles are not always like pretty easy, or I mean, they're risky because there could be some background worker. For example, if you work with a mobile phone, I mean, could kill your battery, or because you're draining your battery, or Git branching. But if you play this card and say like, we accept it, but we have to work with Git branching, maybe you have the conversation with the product owner or with the stakeholder asking, what is Git branching? And then you can explain it's risky because we are working parallel and we have to merge later. So this is a card game. People will ask a question like, I don't understand it. I don't get it. What do you mean with this card? And exactly this conversation, this communication, this collaboration I want to have with my teams. And it's always, if I do this workshop, there's always a question like, okay, what is an enabler card? And mostly in every team, there's somebody who said like, I worked with Safe. I can explain you the enabler card. So there are always almost already like two benefits. If you do this one in a workshop, people will open their minds and I think like, okay, what other options do we have? I mean, it's not only splitting, and they will just talk about it, and they will get psychologically safe, so they can use the cards. They can remove it, and then some cards here, which are still not really in a category. So I like to empower my teams to do refactoring. Maybe you have to do refactoring before you can accept a user story. So you can play the refactoring card, time box, or maybe your company needs an architecture decision. So you can play the architecture decision card. So these were the cards which I created, and I thought like, how can I explain this card to the teams? Because people will not losing interest, but it's really difficult to focus if I explain all the cards. So I said like, okay, maybe I have to create a workshop where the people explaining the cards to themselves. So if I run the workshop on site, I will put 4 or 6 people on a table, and I will print out the user story of hell. I can explain it to you later. And then I give them the cards. And 2 people getting one set of cards, so they have to check it together. And this is kind of like the first group where they're checking them. So like, I don't get it, but it's like Git branching. It's a little bit technical for me. So the other person will explain. If they cannot explain it, they will maybe ask a different group at the same table. And if they don't ask a different group at the same table, they will ask, or they don't have the answer, they will ask the next table. So I never had to step in to explain any card. That was really nice. So let me walk you a little bit through the workshop, and then you can decide how you could apply these cards for your team, a serious game, one-time learning, or maybe if you have a young team, use it all the time. By the way, you don't have to make any screenshots or whatever. I mean, everything is freely available. So I created the user story of hell and an exercise. So the exercise here is your team doesn't accept more than 12 story points as backlog item, and this one is estimated at 50. So you have to break it down as team. Identify the hotspots. You don't have to write new user stories because you should just get familiar with the techniques, how to refine it. Yeah, for people who like reading and not so much talking, here it's everything written down. And then I created here the user story of hell. And I give people 35 or 40 minutes. And if we play it online, the first 5 minutes, the cards are hidden. So people getting familiar with the user story. If I play it on site, they get everything at the same time because it's easier and they have to collaborate in teams of 2. And then with the table, so up to 6 people. So of course, this is really, really agile. I'm getting a little bit sarky and ironic because it's in Jira. So I was writing this user story in Jira. Here it's user story format. And here we have a lot of acceptance criteria. And that's not all. Additionally, we have some comments here. For example, we have here one guy, Matthias, who wanted to give the talk about team topologies. He's a really nice architect, so this was influenced by him. So he's telling us before we implement our Bluetooth app that we have to check this Bluetooth libraries. So the idea behind it here is that that's an architectural decision. So if your team is stuck, they could throw the architecture decision card on this hotspot or time box research. But because both are okay, both are right, because you don't want to do an architecture decision without research before, and you have to know what you mean. But even if you see like this blue and green, so domain knowledge, that's both right, and people can start to communicate about it. So there's no perfect solution. And then we have this guy, Axel, here. You can try to read it, but it doesn't give any sense because I used ChatGPT to create this comments, and I told ChatGPT, create something technical which nobody will understand. So the idea here is we need some green card, for example, create a hypothesis, test case. I'm not really accepting the test case card here, simpler solution, but what I wanted to have is that people just like call Axel and ask like, what do you mean with it? And don't assume things. Then we have here Matti. He said like, there's something missing, but there's somebody who is able to be contacted from 4 o'clock in the morning until 1. That's really airport working time. So people can put their cards here. And this was one iteration I played yesterday. So this is how the team was solving it. And here, this comment basically should drive everybody crazy. It's Carsten. I mean, as project lead, not project lead, project manager, like, please add the binning delivery date as soon as possible. The scope is accurate. I mean, this had Git branching. That was really interesting. So if you want to run this workshop or want to discover the backlog refinement cards yourself, here you can see the user story. Here's your objective, and basically 40 minutes are okay with people who are in the software development business. If I would run this one at the university, maybe I would give them 1.5 hours because they need time to discover the cards and see the opportunities. Then I created for the user story, because you need some context, I created a product vision. Product vision from an app called Skip the Baggage Carousel. Basically, the idea is you're flying in Europe, you're doing sightseeing after your flight, and your luggage will be delivered directly to your hotel. So you can go somewhere and don't have to carry your luggage. So of course you have to pay for it. You need an app. And if you download this workshop here, you will find a baggage carousel app. So with a little bit explanation. So you can explain it to your team. I really like Midjourney. So here we have like at least 5 suns and 2 Eiffel Towers in Paris. So it's Paris really deluxe. The product vision again, and here the workflow. If I run this one on site, I experienced one or something. So the first thing I experienced is like, you need 40 minutes because first time I was running it in 20 minutes was way too less. And people are really happily throwing their cards. And basically first they need 5 minutes to read the user story, then they will ask questions, then in pairs of 2, they will check the cards, they will talk about the cards, then there will be like 10 minutes, not really silence, but they need to digest it. And then after 20 minutes, they will start to throw the cards there and they will remove cards. And they're really, really happy doing that. And that was really nice. And later they're reflecting their way of doing the backlog refinement process. And said like, oh, I never heard about this one. I never heard about that one. Or they learned something technical. Now they know what Git branching or feature toggles are. So this year, if you take the workshop, this is like a possible result. But remember, there's no master solution for it. And now you will say like, damn, I mean, the product vision is nice, but how should I explain it? So I had a little bit free time. So this is the my reverse. This is the my reverse. Sorry, I was forgetting to provide the links, but you can find it. So you can say use template here. Just clone it. Put it here to the education team. It takes some time, so I can have a zip here. It takes a little bit longer because I included a shitload of videos here. So in the moment you're opening it up, you see here like a black spot. And unfortunately, you cannot listen to the sound. But you have something here. I will stop it and check a different one. So here you have the talk track. And here you have our overmotivated product owner. So I muted it here for myself, but here you have our product owner, Sam. He is overmotivated and he will give you an introduction into his vision of the app. So if you don't feel comfortable to explain it, so we have Sam, and then we have Tamara. Tamara, give us an overview about how to work at the airport and what the working process would be. So you can, if you clone this workshop, you can experience it with your team together. Okay, so that's about the workshop. So now coming back to PowerPoint, give me a second for the last minutes. Good news, everyone. Yeah. That we already had. Okay. I will provide the links later. Sorry, so you can scan it, but you don't have to scan it here. So I'll be honest with you, like the times we're not making it in time. And when I mean like in time, it's not here for the talk. I mean, I printed them and it's like a really nice feeling if you have them, holding them in your hand, but the team and the product owner got stressed out. So I left the team and I wasn't able to apply the backlog refinement cards in my young team. So now you can decide, do I have to drown here in pain or was I achieving something? And I would say I achieved something. Then don't really look happy, but it's okay. So here you can see the happy face of the workshop. I mean, that women here really smiling. So they had a lot of fun when we playing it together at conferences. And here too, like really interactive. So people like to be in the serious game, like to refine this user story of hell, even like they hate it. But I mean, there's so much room for improvement or for refinement. And what made me really happy, so I gave this game to Matthias, who wanted to give the other talk, and he was really inspired. So he started to create a domain-driven design game. So, for example, this is his card of Big Ball of Mud. So the idea was creating a scenario, or if you have your domain map or your architecture landscape, so just throw the cards on the points where they're like hotspots, or here teams and locations, as well as different triggers. So these are things here Matthias created for domain-driven design. And I think a few days ago, he uploaded it. So both like the Backlog Refinement Cards are in a GitHub repository, as well as Matthias domain-driven design cards. They are not printed, but they are ready to use. And I think maybe we will create a similar workshop so you can teach your teams domain-driven design. So this was something which actually made me really happy, that I was able to influence him and to collaborate with him. And now he's like really good in using Midjourney and having so much fun. This is the Miro board in the Miroverse. So just it's free, and I would be happy if you say there's a card missing, edit, send me a message. The GitHub cards, basically, if you search for backlog refinement cards, that's not so much in the internet, you will find it pretty easy and quick. Yep, so that would be the presentation. So we have kind of like 7 minutes time for question and answers.